Hello again and welcome back to this Supra build. So on this little episode today I'm going to be doing the panel from here, which is the lower radiator panel that joins across from the chassis leg to chassis leg. One of the biggest things I've found with a Supra when I come to jack it up is the actual lack of jacking points. Obviously there are the standard ones, but they're always in a bit of a naff place, and if you want to jack the car up you've got to jack up each corner individually, so it just bugs me. The back isn't too bad because there's usually the diff there, so you can jack up off the diff and it just lifts up onto the two front wheels. But I like to be able to jack it up from the front if I ever need to do oil changes and this, that and the other, which currently you have to jack either the left hand side first and then the right to lift it up uniformly off the floor. So the plan is where the radiator panel sits, which is across here, it's not currently in as you can see, is to make a couple of end plates that go on the ends here, one on this side, and then put some nice heavy duty steel across the bottom here so that when I put the jack rolled underneath here I can jack up off the front of this bar, so then it'll just lift the entire front of the car up in one go instead of having to do it in multiple different places. So that is the plan. So yeah, let's just get to it. So this here is said rad panel. So as you can see, these points here are where you put your rubber bushes and your radiator sits and slots into here, and this is the front of the car, that's facing the rear, so it sits in there and that's what supports your radiator. But as you can see, it's only thin pressed steel, not a lot of structure to it. It's literally just for holding a radiator and a couple of your under tray screws. So what I've got here is this length of box section. So obviously it's 50mm by 25, so it's relatively strong, but what I'm going to do with this piece here, I've just had it tucked away in the corner of the garage there for years, so I thought I might as well use it. So what I'm going to do, this is almost to length, I think I've got about that much excess if I cut it in half, so I can do two lengths of this side by side, so then it basically make it a 50mm box section. Obviously it'll have a double internal sort of skin to it, so it'll be nice and strong, that, so I should be able to jack the entire car up off of this. So I'm going to get this now chopped in half, and I'm going to try and mirror these mounting points and everything onto this bar. Right, so I've chopped them to length. I know one's quite substantially longer than the other, but that doesn't matter just at the minute. So yeah, so basically what I meant by the double skin was the fact that it's then going to have two internal walls as well, as to make this even stronger. So as you know, you got it with an I-beam, you've got a flat face and a vertical face, just to make up the strength of the steel. So hopefully, all being good, when you stand on that, there'll be no flex in that whatsoever. So the next thing I need to do is basically these end plates, I need to make some up out of this plate steel that I've got sat laying right here. And the easiest way to mark them out is to just lay the piece of steel down and draw around them basically. So these two top holes, if I can hold it without it falling over, so these two top holes are going to become sort of redundant because they're not going to be really needed. So yeah, so I can just lay this right down into the radius of that piece of steel, and I can get some plates cut out from this. So let's get drawing around there and we'll get cracking with that. So I know that this plate folds up at this angle, but I don't really need that, so all I'm going to do, drop the ruler straight down that edge, so I know exactly where the level is to the bottom of the original panel. So all I've got to do now is just draw a line linking the two together basically. So there we go, that's them marked out, so all I need to do now is get them cut out. So I'll probably use plasma cutter for them, and we'll make a start in a sec. And like with anything cable related, no matter how tidy you put them away, they always get knotted up. There we have it. So that's them two plates cut out. Obviously they are not the neatest because they're just rough cut by hand. This one's a lot better than that one. So that was my first go. But anyway, yeah, I get these cleaned up now with the angle grinder, get rid of some of this splatter on the back, and we'll go from there. So I've cleaned all the edges up now. Before I take all this rust layer off of here, I need to drill these holes so that I don't lose these markings. And if you remember from the last video, I've now got a new drill. So yes, hopefully this one lasts me just as long as my last one did. So I've sent and punched all of these, so all I need to do now is just drill them out and then we can go from there. And there we are, so that's the two end plates made up. So as you can see, left hand this time to the left hand plate that I've made, that now slots and sits on there, and those holes line up with the original holes. So they're all made up. That one doesn't at the minute because it just needs lifting up. So there you go, they all now nicely line up with that. So I know that we're pretty much sorted with those. The next thing to do is I'm going to put a piece of box down the middle of there so that it's got an extra bit of strength, because if I just weld a bit of box to the bottom here, it's going to have a lot of flex in that. So I want to strengthen these up as much as possible. So like anything in my garage, I just have bits of box laying around, so it'd be somewhat similar to that, just to give it a bit of strength. And then we're good to go. But unfortunately it is time now to go and get my little lad from school, so I will continue this video in just a minute. Right, so next day now, so it's time to get back to this thing and see if we can make a little bit more progress today. I've only got a couple of hours before I've got to go and get my little lad from school again, so I have had a little bit of an exciting delivery today. So I've had a few Link products turning up, so I've got air temp sensor, the map sensor to go with my ECU, and the new knock sensors for the engine. There are a couple of other sensors that I still need to get. But whilst Link have got a bit of an offer on at the minute, I just thought I'm going to have to get them whilst they're cheaper, because the sensors, they're not bloody cheap. So pop them up there out of the way. So yes, so carrying on with this lower member here. So yeah, so the next things I need to produce are these ringlet parts here that the radiator bushings sit into. So I'm going to see if I've got a spare bit of sheet steel, and some stuff in corner tucked away down there. So I'm going to use some of that and get chopping. So first things first, I need to measure the internal diameter of this to whatever size it is, which is just shy of 40mm. So as you'll notice, I've bought myself a new cheap vernier because mine were knackered and they ended up in the bin. So I've had a look at these. So these are the original hubs, these are the fronts. I'm pretty sure, yeah, these are the fronts. Now this little collar on here is currently 43mm. So it's only going to be like 1.5mm either side difference. So if anything, it's a bit bigger, it should be a little bit better. So I just need to get that little collar off of the wheel hub there, and then I can use that as a press for pressing a bit of steel and caving some steel plate in to make it look like those down there. So let's just get to it, shall we? Right, so I've just tried using them hydraulic pullers there. They're on the floor there because they're absolutely useless. They might as well be made of cheese. So yes, so the bearing race here, as you can see, it's got like a slight radius to it. So I've got a piece of aluminium bar that I'm just going to turn down now on the lathe and make a mirror image of said radius, so that when I press the piece of steel, it'll press a nice curve into it, which should match the curve on the inside of that. So let's just get to that bit, shall we? So there we go, I've made my dimpled eye. So this radius is now to mimic the radius that is on the part of the rad panel there. It also sort of closely mimics this, so it'll be somewhere near. It's not exact, but as you can see, that goes on there, and hopefully that will be installed in the press that way up, and then this will be pressed down into this. But I came across a little bit of a hiccup, and that is the fact that I don't have a 40mm hole cutter. The only one I've got is a 44mm. Wherever I've put it now, but it's one of these type hole cutters, so you're not in the glare of the light there. And unfortunately, there they are. So it's this type, but unfortunately I do not have the harbour that holds that type of cutter. Somewhere along the line, many moons ago, it has just gone AWOL, so I've had to order some. So they're not going to turn up now till tomorrow. Good old Amazon next day delivery there. So there's not really that much more I can do now, apart from sorting out the bars basically, which are going to be the main supporting bars. I can get them tacked together and cut to length or whatnot, and we'll just have to make the rest of these bits up later on once the majority of the rest of it is put together. So if you can imagine, these parts here are going to be the uprights. These are bolted to the chassis, and the leg, which is going to become this section of it. So if you imagine, that's going to be like this, and then there's going to be another one on that side. So when I jack up those parts, it's just going to be a spot weld on the bottom of here. So the only thing that is supporting the whole car is going to be the thickness of that steel in a vertical state, which it'll probably hold it, but it needs strengthening. So some nice struts like this are going to get spotted on for now, and then once I've got all the measurements right, it'll all then be fully welded up. So let's just get to that, and we'll see where we get to. Because I'm currently in the garage, as you can see, I've got my coat on, it's cold. We've currently got Storm Caroline ripping through, so I'll just show you what it's like outside, because it's grim. You see all trees blowing, chucking it down with rain. I'm going back in, it's horrible. So unfortunately, these are the hiccups that I get, because although my car is under a carport, it's just a carport. It's not enclosed, it's open at one end. The wind still rips through it and the rain does still get in. So little things like this that hold me back, and that's why a lot of these projects, once I hit winter, take a lot longer than they should do really. But yes, let's crack on. So I've just offered up these end panels to the original structure basically. Now I need to make sure that when I take my measurements that I actually reduce it by the thickness of this steel, because this face here is actually going to end up being this face, if you know what I mean, once it's made up, because that's got to go between the chassis legs. So right then, so all I need to do now is measure from that point to that point, and then I can cut these pieces of steel to the exact lengths minus the thickness of that. Or you could just stop being a doofus and do it like this. Just measure it straight from there. Come on, tape measure. Straight from there to there, which is 888 millimeters. So, piece of steel. One end is square, one end isn't. I'm pretty sure that's the non-square end. They're not both not the best, but so that one needs to measure 888. So we've got just enough length there. That's cut at 90 centimeters. So we've got just enough to cover it. So I've just chopped these two, so they're now the same length. They are the correct length in which I need. I dug out big old angry wheel over there. It's a scary thing. So yeah, these are now cut to the correct length, and we can sort of get cracking from there. Right, so I've just sat these in position where they sort of need to go. So I've just marked the height there, that is the height of the bar, so I know that when I cut a piece of this length here, I know where I need to cut it down to lengthwise. So taking that measurement, that is pretty much bang on 14.5 centimeters, give or take. It don't need to be too exact, so I just need to chop that down to 14.5 centimeters and do the same for the other side. So we're back over to the big dirty wheel I don't like using, but it needs to be used every now and again, so I'll show you what it looks like. If you're watching on headphones, you might want to turn them down now. Ready? One more to do. Let that stop spinning. And there we have it, 2 nice pieces of box. The next thing I need to do is chamfer an edge off of the corner of here, because currently, because of the radius on the inside of the bend on this plate, it won't go all the way up. So my 14 and a half millimeters, whatever it was here, as you can see, the line is just a little bit off. So I'm just going to get the angle grinder out and just cut a chamfer onto the edge of there on both parts. And there you go. So now it's just got a slight chamfer on that face. Everything is allowed to go up nice and snug against the ends there. So that's almost ready for welding. So what I've done now, I've just given these a quick scrubbing up, cleaned up all the metal, so these can now be welded into place. So I've marked the centre line of the bracket on each. They're not identical because one is left hand, one is right hand, and also they were hand cut out on the plasma cutter. These holes the bolt holes all line up, that's the main thing. And these are almost as that one probably just needed to be brought down a bit more symmetrical, like this side. But for what I need it for, it'll be absolutely spot on. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to get these spot welded into place. I'm not going to fully weld them yet until I know exactly where they're going to fit on the car and how they mate up to the bars. Because the last thing I want to do is weld it all together and then it not bloody fit. So let's just get to it. And if you have one of these welders from Artec, it's a brilliant little welder, but when you tidy your hoses away, you always knock these dials. So look at the voltage, look how easy they are to change. So the slightest touch of the hose, you can knock your settings. So always, before you start welding, just double check that everything is where you need it to be. Too much wire feed on that, flipping it. And for some reason, there's no fucking gas. There we go, that's the 2 end plates welded up. So that's me pretty much job stopped now until tomorrow, until the hole saw comes. And also, let me turn this welder off, it's a bit noisy. So yeah, until I can see daylight outside and it's not blowing an absolute gale, I'm not going outside doing this. So yeah. It's as simple as that. The weather is atrocious, so I ain't bothering going out. But I can sort of mock this up and show you what it should really. Well, there's no point showing you what it's going to look like, because you're going to see what it's going to look like in the next little clip. So they'll be welded to there like that. So what I was saying before is that this metal plate would have been the structural support for all of the weight, but now this is going to be taking all of the weight, if you know what I mean. So it's not just a thin piece of steel that can flex and move about. So just beefing everything up and making sure that it's all going to be strong enough in order to lift the car. And once I've done this, it's pretty much straight sailing from there on, and we can get on with a few more of the exciting bits. I think the next thing is the loom, but it might be exciting for you, but it's most certainly not for me, because I hate wiring. So yes, we are making progress. So No doubt the next clip for you is going to be instant, but for me it's probably going to be another day or two. So yeah, I'll see you in the next clip. But before I call it complete quits, what I'm going to do is the two mating faces that are going together, I'm going to give them a coat of POR 15 so that when they do go together they're protected, because once they're welded together I'm not going to be able to get any paint in between those two surfaces. So I'll do that and we'll show you in a bit. Right, so it's now the next day. I've had a delivery, so I've got a couple more hole saws and I got the hole punch. So whether this thing will actually work for the thickness of metal I'm wanting to cut through, I'm not quite sure, but there's only one way to find out. Let's take a bit to go. But I also painted these with the POR 15, so these are going to be the mating faces. So obviously once these are all welded up together, I'm not going to be able to paint the inside of those faces. So I thought I might as well do it now, and at least everything is then protected. So first things first, get a piece of steel that I want to cut and give that hole cutter a try. So this piece of steel, I'm going to draw a line about here, that's where it's going to be chopped. So from there roughly down there like that, that's going to make the tang for the radiator support. So this thing's going to go somewhere near the end, so I'm just going to mark a rough circle there, and that's where I need to put my first hole. Big enough to fit that through it, because that's your guide for this hole punch cutter type thing. So first things first, got one of my new twist drill bits, and I'm going to drill out that hole. So that's the hole drilled out for that. So next thing to do is put that through there, and then this bit screws on underneath, and these teeth things here are supposed to cut the steel out. But whether it'll do this thickness I don't know. It is about 2 mm thick, so let's have a do, shall we? And there we go, it's done it. I don't think it particularly liked it, but it definitely did it. So all I've got to do now is press that back out of there, because it seems to be a little bit stuck. But it's there. And there you go, it's actually cut out quite a neat hole, that, considering the thickness of the material. I'm impressed. So the next thing to do is to try my little hydraulic press thing to try and flare the inside of this hole, and if it doesn't work I'll just use it as is, it'll be fine. So this was going to be the internal radius of the press for doing that part. And this was going to be the opposite, so when you press it in it actually follows the curvature of said hole. But unfortunately I ordered a 40 mm instead of a 44 mm, so that won't fit. I tell you what, I can't order anything at the minute. So as you can see, I can't use that to flare it outwards. But the fact is that the actual rubber bungs for the radiators are 40 mm on that internal face there, so they just go in there nice and neat. So I might just use them as is. The only downside is when you get that ribbing you get extra strength in the part, which I'm not going to get with that, so it's just going to be a flat piece of steel. So I might just have to try and strengthen it up in another way. So I'm not ordering another bloody hole cutter now, I just can't be bothered. I just want to get on with this thing and get it finished. So I'm going to cut that out now. I'm going to take the other bits out to the car and get them held into place, and then I can get them tack welded, and then I know exactly where everything needs to sit. Right, so I've got that side bolted into place, this side also bolted into place. I've just put a quick spot weld on the end of each of these just to hold them together so I'm not fighting two separate pieces. I've dragged the welding rig out, so it's now time to get this into position and get it all spot welded together, and then I can fully weld it on the floor once that's all done. Right, so just put a couple of dirty big spot welds on there. Next thing I'm going to do is, now that everything is sort of sat in situ, I'm just going to put some big spot welds around these nuts as well, so then they can become a captive nut. At the minute they're just loose, so you're faffing around with multiple items, and when you want to come and fit it fully. Right, so now I've done all that, it's just time to get it all welded up fully, and it can be installed properly then. Right, so I got a little bit carried away with the steps, and basically I've welded it all up and I've now painted it. So it's currently hung up in the garage with its first coat of paint on there. So it's going to need another coat at least yet, but for now it'll do. So that's the end of that little bit. Hopefully I'll be getting on with a few more bits and pieces, and I can't remember where I was going with the rest of this video. But yeah, so that jacking up point's now done. Just need to wait for this paint to dry and then I can fully show you it installed. And then it's a case of getting on with the wiring, I think it was. So I'm going to dig out the wiring loom in just a sec, and we'll get that laid out and see where we're going to go with that. But I do need to have a good tidy up in here so that I can get some floor space and get tidied up, and then I'm not tripping up over everything because it's doing me head in at the minute. Because like any of you know, I get an hour here and there, squeeze as much into that time as possible, and then just down tools and have to go and get the lad from school. So it soon becomes a bit of a mess in here. So yeah, I'll go get that loom out. And there it is. That's the engine loom. So it's just been bundled in a box for like the past probably about 8 years at least. So it's going to need some organising, that is for sure, I can tell you. So yes, so that's going to be a bit of a pig to sort out. So I'm going to leave this video here for now, and hopefully the next video will be me starting to organise through all of that wiring, which me and wires, we don't get on. Pipes I can deal with. Wires, because if you've got any continuity issues, are a bugger to find. So yeah. So I'm really not looking forward to that. But hopefully the next video I'll have something a little bit more exciting for you, and I'll get on with this wiring. So see you in the next one. Bye.